All right, welcome to the beginner's guide to clay.com in 2026. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Clay to significantly improve your cold email campaigns and the results that you see through cold email. Now, if you're not too familiar with Clay, or if you haven't used it before, Clay is an all-in-one data enrichment platform. There's basically nothing that you can't do within Clay at this point. You can build lead lists, you can enrich your data, you can clean up your data, you can format your data. You can basically do everything in Clay. And in this video, I'm going to show you a couple of the cool features and a couple of the ways that we use Clay to improve our cold email campaigns and to clean up our data, and also to make sure that our data is as precise as possible before we actually launch our cold email campaigns. For some context, my name is Alex. I run a B2B cold email agency. I've sent over 5 million cold emails, booked over 1,000 sales calls, and I've generated 1.2 million in revenue for my clients just using cold email. And Clay has been an amazing addition to our tech stack. We use Clay on a daily basis, almost for all of the campaigns that we run, both for ourselves and for our clients. And it's definitely significantly changed the cold email space ever since its launch. Now, the first thing you need to do in order to start using Clay is you need to create an account. So just type in clay.com. It's going to bring you to this website right here. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time scrolling through the website, but you can actually scroll through here and see all the cool things that you can do with Clay. One thing that I recommend to everyone if you're just getting started with Clay is to actually go into resources and then into Clay University. Now, Clay University, as you can see here on the left column, there's an overview of how to use Clay, how to find companies, how to use signals, how to automate your inbound. There's so many different things that you can do, and there's a variety of courses here. There's also some templates here that they give you. So there's like so many things that you can see here within Clay University that are actually going to help you when you first start using Clay. Because once I log into the dashboard, you're going to see it can look a bit confusing. And because there's so many things that you can do within Clay, it really helps for you to actually start navigating through the platform if you can go through a couple of videos in Clay University first. If you go through some of these courses, if I just open up one of them, you can see here that they have videos about how to find companies, how to find people, how to find job sources, how to enrich data, how to find businesses with Google Maps. You can also find local businesses, how to enrich company data, enrich people data. So you can do all these things and many, many more things within Clay. Now, what you need to do is you need to go into pricing. Now, I would say out of all the tools that we use to run cold email campaigns, Clay is probably on the pricier side of things. It's not the cheapest tool. So as you can see, you can go for the starter package. This is the cheapest package that you get. It's essentially $134 a month, and you get 24,000 credits a year. So you basically get 2,000 credits a month. You can also upgrade this to 36,000 credits a year. Now you can also go beyond that if you want more than 36K credits a year. You could then go into the Explorer package, which is going to give you 120 or 168 or 240 credits. Then you can also go into the Pro or the Enterprise plan. Now, if you want to go into the monthly package, then the starter one is going to be 229 a month if you want 3,000 credits, and it's going to be 149 a month if you want to go for the 2,000 credits. As I said previously, this is probably on the pricier end of tools. However, if you do have the budget to invest in Clay and to invest in your cold email campaigns, then I would highly recommend this investment, because the majority of things that you can do in Clay, you can't really do anywhere else. All you need to do right here is just choose the account that you want. Just click on buy now, and then I'm going to log into Clay and I'm going to show you the first thing that you're going to see once you log into your account. All right, so once you log into your Clay account, this is the first thing that you're going to see. So this is a pretty simple dashboard right here. You can see here on the left column, you have your campaigns, your Clay agents, you have your settings and your home page. Nothing really to do here. Then what we can help you build today, this is a cool addition that Clay added right now to the platform, where you can actually in writing explain what you want to do. And then Clay's AI tool called Sculptor is actually going to build the table for you. Now, I'm not actually going to do that right now. If you guys want an actual tutorial of how to use that specific feature, then I can make a separate video about that. But I just more so want to spend some time running you through a couple of tables and a couple of fundamental things that you should be doing to all of your lead lists when you're running cold email campaigns. So I'm just going to log into one of the files that I've created here. I've created a specific file just for this video called YouTube video. So I'm just going to open that up right here. This is the actual workbook. So within Clay, you can create folders and workbooks. So this is the actual workbook right here. It's pretty simple. As you can see, first of all, these are all the bunch of things that you can do. So you can find people, find companies, find jobs. You can import from a CSV. Now, what I did right here is I imported from a CSV. And I'm going to show you this right here. So we have 3 tables right now. These are 3 lead lists that I previously built using Apollo.io. And if you don't know how to build a lead list, and I actually created a video talking about how to build a lead list in Apollo, how to verify it. And now you can just basically import it into Clay. If you want to know how to actually reach this point where you can import a CSV file into Clay, then all you need to do is you just need to click on add right here. And if you click on add, it's going to allow you to import from a CSV. So if you press import from CSV, you can then import the actual CSV file that you basically created through Apollo and you exported from Apollo. So if you just click on import CSV, you can browse your files and you can just import it. And then once you import it, you're basically going to reach this point right here where you're going to have all your columns in the CSV file. Okay, so you have your first name, you have your last name, your title, you have the company name. Ignore the normalized company name. I'm going to explain to you what that is. You have the email, employees, industry, person LinkedIn URL, company LinkedIn URL, the company address, the company city, company state, company country, website. Normalize the domain. You can ignore that for right now. And then we also have a B2B qualification enrichment right here, which you can also ignore for now. So the three things that I told you to ignore are three things that I actually did within Clay. And that's what I want to show you in this video. Up to this point, everything should be clear. So you've already built the lead list. You've now imported it here. And basically the first thing you're going to see is just the actual lead list exactly as you exported it from the database that you built that lead list. Okay, when you reach this point, basically Clay has done nothing up to this point. Okay, and I'm just going to show you how to basically navigate through this part of the platform. So at the bottom here, you have all your tables. Okay, within this workbook, okay, you have all your tables right here. You have the overview right here, which is basically these three tables. We have marketing US, marketing UK, and marketing rest of world. Okay, it's these three tables right here. And now we're going to be focusing on marketing US. So this is the table that I'm going to focus on right now. You can see here that you can actually sort your data by a certain column. Okay, so if you want to choose a certain column and then basically sort your data in a certain way based on that column. So if I go to like first name, you can actually choose to sort the data from A to Z. So that way you can actually choose how to view your data. The next thing you can do is you can set a filter. Okay, so you can actually choose where website right here is not empty. So you can choose here if you want the website to be equal to something, if website contains something, if you want it to not be empty. If you've ever used the filters on Google Sheets, then it's basically very similar. But I'm just going to clear all the filters right here. Then you can see how many rows we have. So we have 6,853 rows in this table. Now you can see that the view here is 20 out of 42 columns. The reason is because if you want to stay organized, sometimes all the columns that you have in your CSV file, they might not all be useful for when you're going to launch a cold email campaign. So I exported a lead list from Apollo, and here are all my columns. Here I had, for example, when I verified the lead list, I could see the quality, the result, the primary email verification source, the direct phone number, the corporate phone number. I don't really care about these columns right now. So I basically can hide them. You can hide them by pressing on this. So now you can see it. And then you can also click on this eye right here to actually hide the column, which means that now you can just view the columns that you want to. So this is going to help you stay organized. If you have a CSV file in a table with 50 different columns, you can just choose which ones you want to see. Here you also have the default view, which I would just keep as default. So you can just view the table like this. Okay, and then now in actions up here in the top right corner, this is where you can actually start playing around with all the different enrichments. This is where you can actually start using all of Clay's different features. Okay, so I'm going to run you through a couple of cool things that you can do in the order that I think you should start doing them. And one of the first things you want to do every time you import new data and new lead lists into Clay is you want to clean up that data, because the majority of the times you've already built your lead list using some sort of other database like Apollo. You've then verified that lead list, you've imported it into Clay. And essentially now you need to clean and format that data so it's ready to use in your cold email campaigns. Because the majority of these databases, the way that they export their data and the way that they are going to give you that data in a CSV file is usually not going to be formatted properly for cold email campaigns. Now, this particular lead list was exported from Apollo. And to be honest, Apollo does give you the company names in the format for cold email campaigns. So as you can see here, all the company names are formatted pretty well. So you don't have any suffixes like limited or inc or plc at the end of these company names. So the majority of them are in good format. But typically speaking, when you export data from databases or other directories and you import them into Clay, or even just in your cold email campaigns, you'll notice that the format of the data is not as it should be. And then when it's not as it should be and when it's not in good format, it's going to impact your cold email campaigns. So if we just take an example of next gen leads, if you were to send a cold email to this person and you reference their company name as Next Gen Leads Limited or Next Gen Leads Inc., then once again, it doesn't look that professional and it doesn't look that natural, because if you were sending that email to them manually, you would probably just write Next Gen Leads as opposed to writing Next Gen Leads Limited. So one of the really cool features that Clay offers is that it can help you normalize your data before you actually import it into any sequencer to launch cold email campaigns from. So just think about normalizing as cleaning and formatting. And you can do that to the company name, but then you can also do it to your domains, as you can see here. So the domain is not going to be used in the cold email campaign. But if, for example, you're comparing lead lists and you want to make sure that you're not contacting certain domains, it really helps if you can upload those domains into Clay, normalize all of the domains. And I'm going to show you exactly what that is and what I mean by that. But if you can normalize those domains so they're all in the same format, so now when you're comparing both lead lists, it's easier for you to spot whether you have a duplicate domain. Whereas if they're all in different formats, some of them have this prefix of HTTPS, the other ones don't have HTTPS, you're not going to be able to carry out accurate comparisons. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to normalize your data. And the first thing we're going to normalize is the company name. Now, as you can see here, this is the column that I imported from Apollo. Okay, so you can see here it's next gen leads. And then we carried out this normalizing of the company name, and the new column, which is the normalized name, is right here. And as I said, because Apollo gives them to you in a pretty good format, you can't actually tell the difference. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a couple of suffixes to these company names, just so that you can see what the normalized name looks like. So if we go into the company name and we type in Inc., here we'll type in Limited, here we'll type in PLC, and then we'll just do here Limited once again. So these are like the common suffixes that you'll see. And if I, for example, now run all of these names right here, let's just see what the normalized name is going to look like. So you can see next gen leads now got normalized, and it's now next gen leads without the Inc. Prospect Direct Franchise Leads PLC is now Prospect Direct Franchise Leads. Tag Board Limited is now Tag Board, and People First Limited is just People First. So as you can see, it really looks a lot better, especially if you're doing this in your cold email campaigns. And the good thing with Clay is that obviously I have 4,500 records here, and you can actually do this at scale without having to manually clean up all these company names. So if you weren't using Clay, you can still obviously normalize your data and clean it, but it would just take you, tens of hours because you need to do this yourself. So the way that you actually run this normalization is that you just come onto the column with your initial company name. You go to insert column to the right. So as you can see here, there's lots of things you can do. You can insert a column to the left, insert a column to the right. You can actually change the color of the column if you want to do that for formatting and just to stay organized. You can duplicate the column. You can sort it from A to Z. And you can also dedupe it, which means that you can actually remove any duplicates. So what we want to do is we want to add a column to the right. And when you do that, you can now see that there's a bunch of different columns that you can actually add. You can add an enrichment, which is going to be what we're going to do. This is called an enrichment. This is one of the enrichments that Clay offers. You can also add a message. You can run a waterfall. You can add a formula. You can merge columns, and you can do a bunch of different things. But for now, we're going to add an enrichment. And now you can see we're back into the Actions tab here to the right. And essentially now you can do a bunch of different things. You can see now we're in the enrichments category. And what we want to do is we just want to type in normalize. So if we just type in norm right here, you'll see that now there's a bunch of different things you can do. We can normalize the company name. You can normalize the domain. What we're going to do is we're going to normalize the company name right now. So we're just going to click on that. And you can see here that it's going to remove Inc., LLC, etc. from a company name. You can always save it as a template if you want to. But essentially, the first thing you need to do is the column mapping. So you need to actually map which column has the company names for you to then normalize. And we're going to click on that, and we're going to choose the company name column. You can normalize the case as well. Now, one other cool thing that Clay offers is essentially conditions. So you can set conditions that the column or a certain row in the column needs to meet for you to actually run the enrichment. And this is a really good thing because you're not going to waste your credits on rows or records that you're not interested in if they don't meet the conditions. So the one really important thing that you always need to focus on and be aware of when you're using Clay is your credits. So you need to make sure that you're not using your credits. Every plan and every Clay package offers you a certain number of credits, and you don't want to be wasting those credits. So the best way to not waste your credits is to add conditions to your formulas. You just need to get used to adding conditions. So for example, in this case, normalizing doesn't cost any credits. So in this case, no matter how big your lead list is, there's no reason for you not to run this specific enrichment. And you actually don't really need to add a formula or a condition either, because you're not going to waste any credits if you then end up filtering down your lead list even more and you're not going to use all of the records. It doesn't matter if you normalized some of those company names. But later on, when I show you another actual enrichment that I ran that does use up credits, I'll show you how I actually used the condition to limit the number of credits that I'm using. So what you need to do now is you just continue to add fields. And now you want to basically choose the normalized name. And then you're going to click on save. You're going to click on this arrow, and always just a good thing to keep in mind is just always click on save and run 10 rows every time you added a new enrichment. Now with normalizing, once again, you're not using any credits. There's nothing you really need to test because it's always the same thing. You can just click on save and run 4.5K rows. I'm not actually going to do that because I've already run this column. But if you just click on save and run 4.5K rows, then you're literally going to get exactly this column right here, where this is going to show you the normalized name, and then you're going to get an extra column, which is the actual normalized name. So this is the column that is actually running, and then the end result or the outcome is basically going to be in this column here called normalized name. And then obviously, if you want to rename this, you can just actually rename the column and call it the actual company name or whatever you want to call it, just so that you know that's going to be the column you're going to use in your cold email campaigns. So this is super important. This is a really cool feature that I definitely recommend you guys use. If we go down into the normalized domain, you can see here that the website that we have is https nextgenleads.com. Basically, all of these websites have https before the actual domain. And what I did here is I normalized the domain in order to basically isolate it and remove the https. And as you can see here, the normalized URL is just nextgenleads.com, tagboard.com without the HTTPS. And this is really helpful, once again, if you want to compare lead lists and you want to remove any contacts from your do not contact list, you want to remove any companies, this is a really good way to do that because it's going to be a lot harder to identify duplicates if the domains don't look identical. Now, just to show you what else it means to isolate the domain, I could even add some sort of a suffix to this. And for example, if you log into a website and you go onto one of the other pages and not the home page of that website, you'll often see that they also have a suffix at the end. For example, case studies or whatever that page is. And if we normalize that domain, you'll see that it's also going to remove the suffix. So if I just open this up, you'll see that it's going to remove the suffix as well. So even if I do it to prospectdirect.com, we might even do contact us. So it could be the contact us page on prospectdirect.com. And if anything, this is the most common use case where normalizing the domain is really good, because you might actually get the same domain in a certain lead list where you get different pages of the same website. And because they each have this different suffix, if you don't normalize the domain, you're not going to be able to identify the duplicate. So this is a really cool thing that you can do. If you want to normalize the domain, once again, you just go onto the column that you want. You right click on website, you go into insert column to the right, you click on add enrichment. Once again, you go to your enrichments, you just click normalize, and now we normalize a domain. Now, what we want to do is, once again, we want to choose the kind of normalization that we want. So if you remove the prefix, you can just remove the HTTPS that I showed you already. You can include www. You can include HTTPS if it's already isolated. And then you can also just isolate the domain, which means it's going to remove both the HTTPS, but also anything that's at the end as a suffix. So we're just going to click on isolate the domain. And then if you want to add some sort of a condition, once again, you can. But then again, this enrichment is also free. It doesn't use up any credits, so we don't need to add any conditions. And then you can just click on continue to add fields, choose normalized URL. And then if you click on save, you can save and run this for 4.5K rows. And I'm not going to do this once again because I've already done it. So here's another really cool thing that you can do. And as you've seen already, one of the main functions of Clay, one of the main features, and one of the most basic features that I want you to leave this video knowing how to do is normalizing and cleaning your data. Because as I said, the majority of the times, you might not actually be building a lead list within Clay. There's cheaper ways to do it. There might be better ways to do it. You're building a lead list in some sort of other database, and you're usually going to be importing that lead list into Clay. So the first thing you need to do is you need to clean up that data and you need to format it. Before you start personalizing, before you start running website scraping and LinkedIn scraping, always clean your data. It's going to be a lot easier. Organize your data. And then after you do that, you can now start playing around with different features. The next thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to qualify the companies and the prospects that are in your lead list. So this is the next step. So for me, before I start thinking about how to personalize my emails, before I start thinking about things I can call out on my prospect's LinkedIn profile or things I can call out on my prospect's website, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the companies and the prospects that are in this lead list right here in this table right in front of me are actually, first of all, the prospects and the companies that I think they are, as I exported them from another database. And second of all, I want to make sure that they're actually qualified. I want to make sure that I can actually provide my services to these people. And Clay gives you the ability to actually scrape the internet. So we're going to scrape their website and the company LinkedIn profile to make sure that these are companies that we can actually reach out to. Okay, so this is always the second step. You clean and you format your data first, and then you qualify the data. You make sure that this is the data that you want. And after you do that, then you start thinking about how to personalize the actual emails using different information you can get from these prospects' website or company LinkedIn profile. And the reason why it's so important to, first of all, qualify your data before you personalize is because, once again, if we go back to saving credits, imagine if you personalize your data. Imagine if you think about ways you can personalize. Imagine if you run an enrichment to call out how long someone has been working at their current job, or to call out certain case studies or something that you can find on these prospects' website. And you do it for 4,500 different rows. But then you run the qualification enrichment. So now you also want to check if those prospects are qualified. But it turns out that only 3,000 out of the 4,500 records are actually qualified. So what you've done now is you ran the personalization enrichment on 1,500 rows that are not even qualified and you're not even going to reach out to. So that's why the first thing you need to do is you need to qualify. A really cool feature that Clay has added, which is going to help you with running these enrichments, because not all enrichments are going to be as simple as normalizing. The next enrichment you're going to be using, which is going to be website scraping and basically using Clay's AI agent called Claygent to scrape websites and company LinkedIn profiles, it can get a bit more complicated with all the prompts. So if I just open up this column, if I just click on edit column, you can see the prompt that I use. I basically went to configure, I use Claygent. The model that I use to scrape the actual company website and LinkedIn is GPT-4o Mini. This is my account with OpenAI. You always need to connect your OpenAI account if you're going to be using an OpenAI model to be scraping websites and LinkedIn profiles. And then if you look at this prompt, if I just start scrolling down, where I basically gave context, the objective, the instructions. I also gave it a format to return the output. This is a massive prompt, as you can see, that I used in order to qualify these companies. And for someone who's just getting started out with Clay, or even if you've been using Clay for a long time, it's always a bit difficult and it takes very long. It's very time consuming to create these prompts. So what you can do, and a really cool feature that Clay has added, before I actually show you what the prompt is, a really cool feature that Clay added is called Chat with Sculptor. So just think about Sculptor as your personal advisor. It's your personal assistant within Clay that is going to be helping you to create tables. It's going to help you to run enrichment. It's going to help you to come up with different ideas and things that you can do within Clay. So this is my conversation with Sculptor. I basically, if I scroll up to the top, I basically gave it a massive prompt here, just a lot of information about what exactly I want to do, how I want to qualify these prospects. So this particular lead list is a lead list of marketing firms. And I just wanted to make sure that they're genuinely B2B companies and that they're also actually within the marketing space. And for me, that would make sure that they are qualified and that I can actually reach out to these companies, because I'm selling cold email lead generation services. So I don't want to be reaching out to companies that are brands or that are direct to consumer, or maybe companies that are in industries that are completely unrelated to marketing that I don't want to actually reach out to. So I gave it this big prompt. Sculptor is going to come back to you with some clarifying questions about what you want the output to look like, a couple of edge cases. So I basically said that I want it to be only in B2B divisions, but then it might come back to you and tell you what if it does B2B and B2C. So it's not strictly direct to consumer, but they offer services to both B2C companies and B2B. Okay, so they might sell a course, a marketing course to consumers, but they might also be doing marketing for B2B companies. What do you want me to do in that case? So I need to basically decide if I want that company to be considered as qualified or not qualified. And then it's basically going to ask you a couple of other questions. So you need to actually know what you're looking for in order for the prompt to be accurate. And I think this is a really cool feature because a lot of people create prompts. They're not too sure as to why they're creating those prompts. They don't really know what they want to do with the prompt. Maybe they don't have the technical ability or the creativity or the know-how to think about all the different edge cases. And so the good thing about Sculptor is that it's going to challenge you when you tell it that you want a certain prompt. It's going to challenge you and it's going to ask you 5 or 6 different questions so you can actually make the prompt as specific as possible. So now I responded to Sculptor. I gave it all the different context that I want. I responded to all those questions. And now it actually created the column. So you can see here, I've created a Claygent column called B2B Qualification. It's going to scrape the company website and LinkedIn to determine if these companies are a good fit. And you can see here, it's going to look for B2B companies, disqualify B2B and B2C. It's going to check if they're service-based, ensure they're actual businesses and not freelancers. We're going to prioritize marketing firms. And it's basically going to return an output that needs to be with 95% confidence that it's qualified. So if it's not at least 95% confident that this is genuinely a company that meets all my criteria, then it's not actually going to return yes in the qualification section. It's also going to give you some reasoning, and essentially it's going to give you a confidence level as well. So it's basically going to start scraping the website and the company LinkedIn profile to get this piece of information. And you're going to see here that the next steps are that you just need to click on add the column. So as you can see now, it says add again. The reason is because I already added this column. So if I actually go into the column right now, you'll see what that column actually looks like. So if I just click into it, you can see if I go to edit column, configure, the use case is Claygen. You always want to click on Claygen here. The model, I personally use ChatGPT 4.0 mini. The reason why I use 4.0 mini is because it uses 1 credit. So as you can see here, there are other models like 5.1 that use 8 credits. There's 0.3 that uses 15 credits. And now we're talking per row. So this is going to add up if you have like 6,000 different rows that you want to run this enrichment on. And usually for basic website and company LinkedIn scraping, 4.0 mini is a really good model. Now I'm not going to go through the entire prompt, but basically I gave it some context, the objective, all the different instructions that I want. One thing that you can do is you can see here the website is required to run, whereas the company LinkedIn is not required to run. So if both of these were required to run, then if you have any row in your lead list that, for example, doesn't have a website or doesn't have a company LinkedIn profile, you're going to get an error. So it's not actually going to run the enrichment. Whereas in my case, if you don't have a website, then obviously I want it to be an error. But if you don't have a company LinkedIn profile, but if you do have a website, then obviously I still want the enrichment to run. And then it gives a couple of edge cases, when to disqualify companies, the confidence level, what I want the output to look like, a couple of examples. And I didn't actually write this prompt. This prompt was written by Sculptor. And then at the end of it, you can also choose the max cost. So this is the max cost that you want your GPT model to spend in order to return to you every single row of data. So if you're spending $1 to get every single row, then imagine what it's going to cost if you want to get 4,500 rows. Now, it doesn't mean that it's definitely going to cost $1, but we're saying what the max cost is going to be. So always set this to the lowest max cost, which is 0.01. It's always going to make sure that your enrichments are not basically costing hundreds of dollars. And then you don't need to do anything here. And then now this is where you can add different conditions for the enrichment. So I only want the enrichment to run if a certain row has XYZ piece of information about it. You don't need to add it using a formula or these brackets here. You can just use AI to actually describe the condition you want. So you don't need to actually write the formula yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I only want to run this enrichment on rows where the website is not empty. So what this means is that if there's any row where the website is actually empty, then I don't actually want to run the enrichment. As you can see here, I've already removed all the rows where the websites are empty. So you can see here that it just says yes everywhere because all of my rows have websites. But in this case, if there was a website, if there was a row where the website was empty, then essentially the output here would be no. And then you can just click on generate formula. So now I'm not going to add this formula. I already ran the enrichment, but this is a really good way for you to once again save your credits. And then all you need to do is you need to click on save. And now click on save and run 10 rows. This is not the same thing as when we were normalizing a company name or a domain where the enrichment is free. Now you're actually running a more specific enrichment that also costs credits. And you need to make sure that the enrichment is returning the actual output that you're looking for. So in this case, always do save and run 10 rows. Check that you're happy with the response and with the output format. And then if you are, then you can run it for 4.5K rows. So I'm going to close this up now so you can see what it looks like. So this is the actual column where the enrichment was running. And you can see here that you just get an output that says response. And now what you want to do is you want to click on this response and you can see the cell details. So you can see the reasoning. You can see the confidence level, you can see the steps taken, the business type, the qualification, confidence level. You can also see the total cost to the AI provider. So we set this to 0.01 and you can see it cost 0.0009 in order to return this specific piece of data. Now, what we have here, you can see that I already pushed one of those pieces of data into a new column. This is the one that I care about, is qualification. So if we take, for example, prospectdirect.com, we go into the response, you can see that the reasoning as to why this is considered qualified is because of this thing right here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to qualification. I'm going to click on add to column. And if you click on add to column, it's going to make a new column with the output of that specific data. So that's what I care about. I care about the qualification, if it's yes or no. The reason why you want to push this into a new column is because then you can come into your filters and you can actually set a filter where the qualification contains a yes. So if the qualification contains a yes, it's then basically going to give you all those records. Now, the reason why this says unsure here is because we changed the domain in this case. So I'm just going to change this back to yes right now, but it's because we added this little suffix at the end here, which affected the scrape. But essentially, these are all going to be qualified. And this is a really good way for you to actually qualify your data and make sure that you're going to be reaching out to the right prospects. And always make sure that you do this before you start thinking about how to personalize and how you can do all sorts of other different crazy things. Okay, so make sure that when you import a lead list into Clay, and this is going to be a lead list that you didn't build in Clay, it's a lead list that you exported from another database and you brought it into Clay, always normalize that data, usually the company name. If for whatever reason you want to normalize the domain, you can do that as well. And then always make sure that you just chat with Sculptor. It's a much easier way to run your enrichments. If you wanted to do the same thing here, but you wanted to do it yourself, you just have to click on Actions, go to Enrichments. All you need to do is you need to type in Claygent. If you type in Claygent, you get this AI web scraper right here. You can just go to configure, then you can actually create this prompt from scratch. So you can go to use case, Claygent, you just keep this here, and then you can go to the model, choose the model that you want. So for example, it would be 4.0 mini. Make sure that your OpenAI account is connected. So you need to actually create an OpenAI account and you need to connect it here. And then you need to actually create the prompt and then just set the max cost, any conditions, and you can do exactly the same thing. I just wouldn't recommend doing that because there's just no point for you to create the prompt from scratch if you can just explain what prompt you're looking for to Sculptor, and then Sculptor is going to create the prompt for you. And you're better off just talking to Sculptor. So if you don't like the prompt, if there's something about the prompt that you're not a fan of, or you think is going to affect the actual output in a way that you don't actually want, then all you need to do is you just need to tell Sculptor that instead of doing this, you can do that. Instead of qualifying people based on B2B or B2C, I want you to qualify them based on industries. I also want you to check their LinkedIn profile. I want you to check that the actual prospect is in the marketing department. They're not in the sales department. There's a bunch of different things that you can do. So this is really important. Always make sure to qualify your data before you run any enrichments. Now, after you finish with your qualification enrichments, that's when you can start personalizing. And a couple of cool things that you can do in Clay is, once again, you can either personalize on a company level, which means that you can scrape the company website or the company LinkedIn profile. And if you scrape the company website, you can call out certain things that you find on the website. So you can tell your GPT model, you can tell Claygent to scrape the website, look for the testimonial section, look for the case study section, look for the services section, and you can actually tell it to extract what services the company offers, what case studies they have, so what companies have they worked with in the past. And then you can actually tell Sculptor that you want the output to look like the company name of the testimonial. So then you can call that out in your scripts. And essentially all you need to do is just chat with Sculptor, tell it exactly what you want to do. A lot of the times, if you're just starting out, you're not actually too sure about what enrichment you want to run. You can even just give it some context and say, hey, I run a cold email agency. I'm reaching out to these types of companies. Could you give me 10 different ideas that I could personalize by scraping publicly available information on their website or on their LinkedIn profile? Now, another thing you can do is you can also scrape an individual's LinkedIn profile. So you can see here that the first row here is Isaiah from Next Gen Leads, or we also have Mohammed from Prospect Direct. And what you can do is you can get Clay to scrape the individual's LinkedIn profile. Just make sure you actually have their LinkedIn profile in your table. So you can see here we have the person LinkedIn URL, and we can actually tell Clay to go into that URL, check how long this individual was working at this company, and then just return to me the number of months or the number of years that this person was actually working at the company. And the reason why you would do this is because maybe in your cold email script, you can say, hey Isaiah, hey Mohammed, I saw that you've been working at Prospect Direct for the past 9 months. And then you can basically get into why exactly you're reaching out. But it always helps to personalize your email scripts if you can call out specific pieces of information about the prospects. Although truthfully, I think that if you normalize your data and you qualify all the prospects and all the companies that are in your table, that is way more important than actually personalizing, because you don't want to fall into the trap of thinking that you need to personalize in order to see results with cold email. It's way more important to have the right data, and then you can actually write the relevant script without having to personalize. As opposed to just being obsessed with personalizing and calling out as many things as you possibly can about those companies. So the most important thing is to do whatever you can to make sure that you have, to the highest degree of accuracy, the right companies and the right prospects in your table. And then after you do that, you can start personalizing. So this was an example of what you can do as a qualification enrichment. If you're reaching out to, let's say, B2B companies or marketing companies, you can just run a website scrape to make sure that they are actually who you're looking for. And now I'm going to go into a different table and I'm going to show you another cool thing that you can do if you're reaching out to retail brands. All right, so this is another table now. This is a table of Ecom brands. And I'm going to show you another enrichment that we did in this table. So you can see this is basically fashion brands in the US with 5 to 50 employees. And you can see that once again, we always normalize the company name. And now you'll actually get some more context as to what it means to normalize. You can see here, David August Inc. is now David August. Sarah Flint Inc. is now Sarah Flint. Imagine if you're sending a cold email and you actually include a comma, Inc. with a full stop, compared to actually just saying Sarah Flint. Sounds a lot more natural. Always make sure you do that. And if I go to the end of the table, you can see that a really cool thing we did here is we actually extracted certain products that these companies are selling on their website. So just to show you what the enrichment looks like, once again, you can either do this with Sculptor or you can go into actions, run an enrichment, and you can do it. But if I go into the actual prompt, so you can see once again, the model is a 4.0 mini. We added a prompt that says, act as a web scraping and data extraction expert. Your task is to analyze the website of an e-commerce company and extract 2 product categories that the company sells. Basically gave it some context as to what I want the output to look like. And then we also set a max cost to 0.01. And you can see here the condition is that the company needs to have a website for you to run this enrichment. And then the results now are shorts and ties, hair accessories, pumps and sandals, dresses and blouses, fleece and knitwear, t-shirts and pants. So the reason why we did this is because after we normalized and we cleaned our data, after we qualified that these are actually fashion brands, what we wanted to do was personalize those emails. So now in the email scripts that we sent to these ecom brands, we could actually say, hey, I was just scrolling through your website and I saw that you're selling shorts and ties. Or, hey, I found your company on Instagram and I really like your pumps and your sandals. I really like your dresses and your blouses. So this really helps you to personalize your cold emails. And as you can see here, we also ran an enrichment for the company industry. So what you'll tend to notice if you're building lead lists in databases like Apollo, ListKit, or any other database, the industry is not going to be that specific. So the actual industry could be fashion and apparel, could be retail. But if you're reaching out to these brands, it's not specific enough to say, hey, I noticed you're a retail brand, or we work with other retail brands, or we work with fashion brands. Why not actually say, we work with luxury hair accessory brands, or we work with luxury footwear brands. We work with retail apparel brands. The reason why it says retail apparel here is because we basically told Claygen that if you can't actually extract what the exact industry is, you can just fall back to retail apparel. We work with streetwear fashion brands. We work with handcrafted jewelry brands. We work with fashion accessory brands, college apparel brands, golf apparel, luxury denim brands. Imagine how much more specific it is to say luxury denim as opposed to saying fashion brands. So once again, we then extracted from this enrichment right here the piece of information that we want, so the custom apparel. And if you want to see what the enrichment looks like, once again, we used 4.0 mini, act as a business analyst specializing in industry classification. And then you can see here the different instructions that we gave it. But this is another really cool use case if you're reaching out to brands. You can call out the different products that they have and also the different industries that they actually operate in. That's another use case of Clay. If you want to just explore through it, you can go into actions, go into view all enrichments. You can actually discover through normalizing. These are all the things that you can normalize. You can even normalize phone number data. You can then go into enrich company info. These are all the things that you can enrich. You can go through a company's Facebook profile. You can check company's industry. You can see their company Instagram. You can also enrich people info. You can see their LinkedIn URL, their education. You can do so many different things. You can also organize your data. You can score your data. And then you can also create your own templates. You can also integrate it with so many different tools. A really good thing with Clay is that it basically integrates with almost every single other tool that you might be using for your cold email campaigns. So this was just a beginner's guide to Clay. There's obviously, as you can see, 150 different things that you can do within Clay, but these are the basics. So even if you could do these 3 things that I showed you how to do in this video, this is going to substantially improve the results that you can see from your cold email campaigns, because now you know how to clean and format your data. So when you're reaching out to prospects, you're actually saying the right thing and your scripts look natural. You also know how to qualify your data. So you know how to make sure that the people and the companies in your table and in your lead list are the right people that you want to be reaching out to, and they're all a good fit. This is going to be really good because you're not going to be getting those responses of, you think I'm a real estate company, but I'm actually an accounting firm. Why are you reaching out to me? We're not a good fit for this. You're going to avoid and prevent those kind of responses. And then you also know how to personalize. Now, I didn't show you all the different use cases for personalizing, but I just showed you this simple example for ecom brands if you're reaching out to ecom brands. And then if you're reaching out to B2B companies, then you can also think of other things that you can do, always using Sculptor. It's going to be a lot easier for you. Hope this video was helpful. This was a beginner's guide to clay.com. If you want me to make a more technical or advanced video showing how to do more things, then you can just leave any ideas you have in the comments. If you run a B2B company and you want to work with my agency, we build all these kind of cool clay tables for our clients as well for their campaigns. You can just click on the first link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.